All right, what is up, guys? VV back with another video, and today we're going to be going over the yellow cards from OP-05, which is going to be called the Awakening, or excuse me, it's going to be called Awakening of the New Era. Very nice name for the set. And so let's go ahead and just dive straight into it. So first and foremost, for those who are wondering, we're not going to be talking a lot about Bello Betty in today's cards, because she's kind of more geared around the Red Revolutionary Army type cards, and Enel is more geared around the Sky Island type cards that we're going to be going over. That's the majority of yellow, and that's kind of how they do it, right? They'll release 6 leaders every single set, or at least from what I've noticed. I could be wrong, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like they release about 6 leaders per set, and they will give each leader like a color from that set to that's you know, the focus of it. However you say that. Sorry, that was a little clumsy. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and hop straight into it. First up is Amazon, a 3-cost, 0 power, 1000 counter yellow Sky Island character, which has the effect of on your opponent's turn, or excuse me, on your opponent's attack, you may rest this character. Okay, so they're going to be able to attack it afterwards. Your opponent may trash 1 card from the top of their life cards. If they do not, give up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 2000 power during this turn. So I guess this is the inverse of like Mom, like the 7-cost yellow Charlotte Linlin character. Excuse me. Because that has, you know, your opponent gets to choose. Do you want me to gain a life or do you want to lose a life? And if they have no life cards left, they're like, okay, I'll choose to gain a life because they can't gain, or excuse me, I'll choose to lose a life because they can't lose any more life cards. You guys know what I mean. But this card says your opponent may trash 1 card from the top of their life cards. If they do not, so in other words, if they don't have any more life cards left, they don't get a choice, right? If they do not, they couldn't, then you're going to give up one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 2000 power during this turn. If someone knows the official ruling on that, by all means share it in the comment section below, but I think I'm understanding that correctly. As far as the card goes, I think it's decent. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's not going to go offensive at any point in the game, realistically, and it's a 1k counter in hand. It costs 3 for this effect. You would almost just rather have a 2k counter in the place of it, I feel like. But at the same time, they can choose to attack this card, so then you're saving a counter that way, or you're saving yourself from having to counter out of an attack that way, where they have to take out this character. And there's also the other potential where they just ignore this character, right? They're like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll trash a card from my life, and I'm just going to smash through. So I don't know. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Because I think it does have some utility, and it does have some functionality where it's just decent, but I don't think it's anything crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna go with 6 out of 10. Okay, next up we have Enel, a 7-cost, 7000 power yellow Sky Island character. The effect is he has Rush, just as he just has that. That's baked in, and then he has once per turn if this character would leave the field. If this character would leave the field. Okay, not on KO. Like, not if he's KO'd or you know, just KO. This is, in other words, so if you were to bounce him or to put him to the top of your life or whatever, if this character would leave the field for any reason, you may trash 1 card from the top of your life cards instead. So then he doesn't move. And then if there's a Monkey D. Luffy character, this effect is negated. Okay, so if they have the Monkey D. Luffy, you're out of luck, right? But in general, or generally speaking, this is a very sticky card. So yeah, I'm going to give this card an 8.5 out of 10. I don't think it's insane. I think the art is insane. That art is crazy. Very cool art. But I don't think this card's actually insane. I think it's just like pretty solid. But 8.5 out of 10, yeah, that's still a good rating. But I just don't think this is like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. We'll see though. Maybe the fact that it's such a sticky card, you know, maybe if you start chaining these together, like, you know, what would it be, turn 4? If you're on the odd curve, 1, 3, 5, 7. Yeah. So if you go turn 4 Enel into turn 5 Enel, where that you have these insanely powerful rusher sticky cards on the board, maybe it's just really good. Who knows? We'll have to see. But overall, I think it's like an 8 out of 10 or an 8.5 out of 10. Not bad at all. All right, next. We have Ohm. This is a 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter character, yellow Sky Island Vassal. He was just, yeah, okay, Enel was just Sky Island. This is a Sky Island Vassals. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. If you have 2 or less life cards, this character gains plus 1,000 power. So remember, Enel starts with 4, right? The leader starts with 4. So getting down to 2 life cards is not very hard to do. And so this is potentially a 4 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter character with the effect of, on play, let's see what this is, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 Holly, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order and play up to 1 Holly from your hand. So let's find Holly real quick. Sorry guys, we do have to go see who that is. Okay, so here's Holly. 3 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter, vanilla character. Outstanding. So potentially around turn 4, like probably around turn 3, 4, 5, somewhere around there, you're paying 4 to get a 6k body down and potentially grab a 5k body and put that down as well. That's a massive tempo swing. I'm going to give this card like a 9 out. No, it's not a 9 out of 10, but I'll give this like a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. And again, in conjunction with the Holly card. If you only have 1 card, well, even if you only have 1 card, this card's at least a 5 out of 10. But the fact that it can search for the other and then potentially just throw it into play, that is, it's very good, guys. This is a very strong tempo card, and I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10, I think. Okay, next up, we got Gatu. 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. It's a Sky Island Vassals character. Excuse me. With effect on play, KO up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. Okay, so I'm assuming maybe you build your strategy around that. Maybe you build your deck around the idea that you don't really want to attack their life at first because you want to get this effect off. Because if they have 4 life left, or 5 life if they're a monocolor leader, you can play this will be a 5 cost, 6k, 1k counter that KOs a 5 or less. Or a 4 or less, depending, right? I think it's potentially very good, but later in the game, its value diminishes pretty severely, right? When they have like 1 or 0. Excuse me. If they have 1 or 0 cards left in their life, then all of a sudden this card's pretty, pretty mediocre. But I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10 though, because I would say this card is good like 75% of the game, or maybe 70% of the game, 60% of the game. I'm not sure. Seems okay though, not bad. Like I said, I give it like a 6.5 out of 10. I think that's what I gave it. All right, next up we have Kotori. This is a 3 cost, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter, yellow Sky Island character. With on play, if you have Hotori, KO up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. So there we are again with the number of your opponent's life cards. If you have Hotori, who is Hotori? Give me just a second. Oh, passive. Here's Hotori. 3 cost, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter as well. Yellow Sky Island. On play, you may play 1 Kotori from your hand. Add up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less to the top or bottom of your opponent's life cards face up. So you're bouncing a 3 or less, and you're playing Kotori, which says if you have Hotori, which you should have if you played it in the correct order, then you're also KOing up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. And remember, Hotori comes into play and bounces a card to their life. Kotori comes into play from Hotori's effect and KOs up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. Okay, so it's starting to make a little bit of sense now. So maybe you play around the fact that you want to give them life cards. Maybe you play the OP-04 blocker pound in a deck like this, So that way you're bouncing cards to their life. Maybe you run Katakuri. And that way you're getting extremely powerful effects from Gatu all game, and the same thing with Kotori. Okay, very interesting. I think the combination of Hotori and Kotori puts... I'm gonna rate them both at the same time. I'm just gonna give them a 7 out of 10. They require a little bit of setup to be good off of each other, but excuse me, when they do go off, it's potentially very powerful. So I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10 for Kotori and Hotori together. 7 out of 10. Okay, next up we have Conis, or Conis, however you say that. This is a 1 cost, 0 power, 2000 counter, Sky Island character. So it's a 2k counter. But it has on play, you may place one of your stages at the bottom of your deck, draw 1 card, and trash 1 card from your hand. You may place one of your stages at the bottom of your deck, draw 1 card, and trash 1 card from your hand. Okay, we are going to have to look at the stage real quick, guys. We are going to have to go backwards and go to the stage. Okay, upper yard. 1 cost, yellow Sky Island stage with the effect of on play. Okay. So, that's interesting. On play, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Sky Island type card and add it to your hand. Then place the rest of the bottom of your deck in the order. So usually with stages, it has an activate ability on there, right? Where you can continuously activate the stage, or it has a continuous effect. This has its effect on play, and that's it. Where it's a top 5 search for Sky Island type card. Now, a card like what we just looked at, though, Conis, however you say it, has an on play where you can place one of your stages at the bottom of your deck. So, okay, so now you've used the on play effect, so just throw it to the bottom of your deck. Then it's going to let you to draw a card and trash a card from your hand. It's a 2k counter as well. This is a very useful 2k counter. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 because it's not just a 2k counter. It actually allows you to cycle through cards by getting rid of a card you've already, used up from your board. So very nice. 8 out of 10 again, by the way, for the Conis or Conis, however you say that card, or however you say that. Goodness, however you say that character's name. All right, so next up is Satori. This is a 5 cost, 5000 power, yellow Sky Island Vassals type character, 2000 counter, and trigger. You may trash 1 card from your hand to play this card. So this is the first card I noticed that probably could go in Bello Betty. Isn't that her name? Bello Betty, yeah. Because it up to 3 of your Revolutionary Army type characters or characters with a trigger gain the plus 3000. Well, the thing about that card we were just looking at is it has a trigger to play the card from hand by just trashing a card from your hand. Or play the card from your life trigger, from the life trigger. But this is a 5 cost, 5000 power card and a 2k counter. So if you get this, if you can cheat this into play, and then next turn you use Bello Betty's effect, this is an 8k coming in hot. Very, very strong, very strong. I'll give this card a 7.5 out of 10. It's a 2k counter. That's the bare minimum I'm going to give it. It has a trigger to play it. It's a 5 cost 5k. It's probably actually closer. I'm going to give it actually an 8.5 out of 10. This is actually a pretty good card, guys. It's a 2k counter, 5 cost 5k with the ability to cheat into play by trashing a card. I'll give it an 8, somewhere between an 8 and 8.5 out of 10. Very solid. Okay, next up we have Shura. This is a 2 cost, 2000 power, Sky Island Vassal yellow character, 1000 counter. Trigger, play this card. And then on play, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Sky Island type card other than Shura. Can't search for itself. And add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Okay. This is a 2 cost searcher. 2 cost, 2000 power searcher with a 1k counter on it. But it has trigger, play this card. And remember, we just looked at... I'm sorry we went out of order. But we did upper yard already. There's already a 1 cost searcher in this deck, right? It's not a character. A character would be more ideal, I think. But you already saw how this kind of goes. And let me go ahead and rate this card while I'm at it. This is a searcher that's an event. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. The character searches I'll give a 7.5 out of 10, but the event well, I'll say the event and the stage searchers are really I can only give somewhere between a 6 and like a 7 out of 10. They're just not quite as good. Anyway, sorry about that. So back to what we were looking at. This guy, he's a 2-cost searcher, but he is but that is the problem. But he's a 2-cost searcher. He's a searcher, but he's a 2-cost searcher. He does have trigger to play the card, which is nice. So I am going to salvage that, what I would normally take away from it. So I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think this card's fine. You can cheat it into play with the trigger if you get it off life. On play it searches. I think it's fine. And it's a 1k counter in hand if needed. So I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, next up we have Lieutenant Spacey. This is a 3-cost, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter character. It's a yellow, the Moon type character. Moon is the type. That's interesting. With the effect of, on your turn, once per turn, when a card is added to your hand from your life, this character gains plus 2,000 power during this turn. Excuse me. So maybe this is meant more for like a Big Mom or Charlotte Linlin yellow deck. I'm not sure. Because it has to happen on your turn once per turn. It's not like on your opponent's turn. But then this card's a 3-cost 6k. When a card is added to your hand from your life, this character gains plus 2,000 power during this turn. So he's a 3-cost 4k with a 1k counter, and then with the potential to be a 3-cost 6k if you're drawing cards from hand. That's interesting. Very interesting effect there. I think this card's solid. I think it's fine. And in decks that like manipulate life cards, even just running like a Napoleon in the deck, right? Even Napoleon can like... Doesn't Napoleon... Let me see something real quick, guys. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure... no, I'm not thinking of Napoleon. I'm thinking of something else. Big Mama Chanter. That's it. Big Mama Chanter. That's what I'm looking for. Did I spell it wrong? There it is. Queen Mama Chanter. I think it's Big Mama Chanter, but maybe it's Queen Mama Chanter. I don't know. It depends on the translation. But this... excuse me. This ability... Or this is a stage I'm going to pull over. This stage right here allows you to activate during your main to rest the stage, and you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life area to your hand, and then place up to one of your characters that cost 3 on top of the owner's life area face up. Okay, and by the way, this card does have a 3 cost, so you would be able to do, change him in and out if you needed to as well. Not saying that'd be a good play or a good deck build, but there are other effects like the stage I just showed that have, life manipulation where you're drawing a card, like Daifuku and the 2K Sanji. And Smoothie. Cards that draw, that add cards from your life to your, well, when a card is added to your hand from your life, that's what they do. They add cards to your hand from your life. So that is... Yeah, there's probably quite a few ways to activate this card. So I'm going to go with this card as I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10 because it does require some form of setup, or otherwise it's just a 3-cost 4K, right? I don't know. Not bad, though. Not a bad card at all. Give it a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, this is a cool-looking card. 5 cost, 7,000 power, yellow animal, Sky Island type character. 1,000 counter, vanilla. 5 out of 10. Next up, we got Pagaya. This is a 1 cost, 1,000 power, 1,000 counter, yellow Sky Island type character. With the effect of once per turn, when a trigger activates, draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. Okay, now that is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. That is a very powerful effect. This is a card you just play on turn 1 and just say, okay, if this card sticks, I'm just going to start reaping the benefits, right? Because in a deck like that, I could see this actually going in as the one drop for black-yellow Charlotte Linlin, for a black-yellow Charlotte Linlin deck. I could definitely see that being a very real possibility. Maybe not, right? But I can see where that could potentially be very strong. But in general, I think this card it's solid for what it does. It's a 1 cost 1k, but it's a 1k counter in hand. Like, yeah, you're not going to be swinging with it, but you don't want to swing with it, right? you want to, once per turn, when a trigger activates, draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. So realistically, activating a trigger is going to be on your opponent's turn, right? So yeah, very good. Very nice 2-card cycle. I like this card. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's fine at what it does. We already talked about Holly. This is just a 3 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter vanilla. This is a 5 out of 10. Hotori we already talked about. That's with conjunction with the Kotori. They're like a 7 out of 10. I can't remember if I said somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7.5 out of 10. I can't remember. Captain McKinley, 3 cost, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter blocker. Yellow Sky Island type character. Excuse me. Play up to 1 Sky Island type character card with a cost of 1 from your hand. We're going to look through that. So we have the Conis card that has the on play to remove the stage and cycle 1. This guy, Pagaya, that we were just looking at, Pagaya. And I think that was all we saw so far. I think that's all there is. Play up to 1 Sky Island type character card with a cost of 1 from your hand. So we'll see how that goes in future sets, or maybe if I'm missing something, y'all tell me, but I think that's it. This card is pretty decent. It's a blocker. It's an on KO. So it'll be a nice way to cheat in to play your 2K counter or your Pagaya guy to get their effects, right? Like this, where is he? Pagaya here to potentially draw some cards from triggers. And it's going to, and you're going to block with him. He's a 3 cost 3K blocker, so you'll be able to block. But it's almost like, I don't know if I'd want to run this. I would rather just run Pound, even though he doesn't have the Sky Island type card. Like, he doesn't have the type for Sky Island. I would actually rather just run Pound, because he's the same stat line, right? He's your your very iconic, or, not iconic, but how do you say it? That's a very, the stat line is used over and over again. It's a 3 cost, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter blocker stat line with an effect on top of that. And this effect is on KO. Play up to 1 of your Sky Island type character cards that cost 1 or less from your hand. Whereas Pound is on KO. You bounce back 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost 3 or less to their life, to the top or bottom of their life. Or maybe it's the top of their life, I can't remember. But either way, I would just rather run Pound over Captain McKinley. I'll still give this 6 out of 10, though, because it's a relevant effect. It's a decent effect. I'll give him 6 out of 10. And it's a 3 cost, 3K blocker with 1K counter. We'll take it. Okay, next up we have Yama. This is a 2 cost, 2,000 power, 1,000 counter, yellow Sky Island character that just has blocker. This is just a 2 cost, 2K blocker. I give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's what I give all the 2 cost, 2,000 power, 1K counter blockers. Okay, over to the events now. First up is El Thor. This is a 1 cost yellow Sky Island event that has counter up to 1 of your leader or character cards, gains plus 2,000 power during this turn. Then if your opponent has 2 or less life, that card gains an additional plus 2,000 power during this battle. That card, maybe it should be this card gains an additional plus 2,000 power during this battle, I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it should be this card gains an additional 2,000 power. So 1 cost, 4K power defense, right? As long as you can get your opponent's life down to 2 or less. I don't like that condition as much. It's weird. These cards with Enel focus on your opponent's life. I'm not a big fan of that interaction. I'll talk more about it at the end of the video. I'm not a huge fan of that wording, though, of that clause. But it's not the end of the world. A lot of these cards are still very good. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But I just don't really like the way that is. Anyway, so the trigger is KO up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. So there we are again with it. Interesting. Because the idea is this, like, once they're down to 0 life, okay, this El Thor card gets turned on, but some of the cards are just worthless after that, right? I mean, they may not literally be worthless, but they lose a lot of their value when your opponent's down to 1 or 2 life. So it's like, you want to keep them on a high enough amount of life to get the effects from some of the cards, but then cards like this is the opposite, where you want them to be at lower life so you get the 4K. I don't know. Again, maybe someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, or if I'm missing something. If you see something different, just share it in the comment section below. But okay, so this is a potential 1 cost 4K counter. It's like yellow's Radical Beam. I would say that this is a 7.5 out of 10. Let me read it one more time. Up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 2,000 power during this battle. Then if your opponent has 2 or less life cards, not you, if your opponent has 2 or less life cards, that card gains an additional plus 2,000 power during this battle. So I'm going to go with 7.5 out of 10. Not bad. And the trigger, yeah. Okay, already read that. Next up, we have 200 million volts Amaru. Very cool looking art here. Very interesting looking art. Very cool name. 200 million volts Amaru. I don't know why that just sounds cool. So this is a 2-cost yellow Sky Island event that has the effect main. Up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. So for 2 costs, you're getting the activation of 3 Dawn. So already it's good, but what else does it have? Then if you have 1 or less life cards, rest up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 4 or less. So that could potentially help you swing for lethal, right? If you have 1 or less life cards and they have a blocker, well, you'll pay 2 to buff your guy for plus 3,000. It could be a leader or a character, and then you'll just tap down one of their 4 cost or less blockers. So that's potentially very strong. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think this is a pretty... Oh, and the trigger. Trigger, you may trash 2 cards from your hand, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. So this is the yellow trigger that, gives you more... gives you another life card if you trigger it, which is very strong, right? That's potentially game winning, where it's like, okay, they're just gonna beat me because I just don't have enough life. But oh wait, you get a trigger like this, and all of a sudden you're back in the game. Potentially, right? It doesn't always happen like that, but it can. I'm gonna give this card a 7 out of 10. Very solid, very nice. Okay, next up, Hino Bird Zap. This is a 2-cost yellow Sky Island type event with the effect of KO up to one of your opponent's characters, where the cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. Gosh, man, I am just not a fan of that. And then trigger, activate this card's main effect. Because again, once your opponent is down to 1 or 0 life, this card is just dead in hand. But who knows? Maybe if you incorporate a lot of trash card effects, maybe this works in a black-yellow Charlotte Linland deck. Like a black-yellow Charlotte Linland deck might be able to put this to use, because you don't really want to attack their life until you're in dominant control, in a very dominant controlling place, and then in that position, you KO their characters with cards like this, and potentially reduce their cost because you're running black cards, where you can hit even better targets, potentially. And then later in the game, when it's no longer relevant, once you've taken their life, you can trash this card with your leader's ability to gain a life, in black-yellow Charlotte Linland. But otherwise, the card is still fine. I'm just not a huge fan of this, the number of... This clause right here, with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. I just don't like that. But, excuse me. It's weird that this is called Hino Bird Zap, but if you look at the card here, there's a 3,000. It's like, wait, what? Oh, well, not a big deal. All right, so I give this card, I still think the card's fine. Let me rate it. I'm going to give this card it's like early in the game, it's very strong. Later in the game, it's very trash. So I'm just going to put it right at a 6 out of 10. Okay, and then Upper Yard Ready went over, just a searcher. Very nice. Well, guys, a lot of cool cards coming in yellow. There's a lot of cool cards coming in OP-05, to be honest. There's a lot of cards I'm looking forward to. Enel seems really good for yellow. This guy, Ohm, I have my eye on, because that effect is potentially very powerful. Where, if you have 2 or less life cards, he's a 4-cost 6K, 1K counter. That's a vanilla stat line, and he has this effect where he can search up, what's his name, Holly, where you're getting a 3-cost 5K. Yeah, you're searching top 5 for it, first of all, potentially getting a card in hand if you already had one of these Hollies in your hand, right? Because you're just going to play one down. I don't know. It just seems very good to me. Seems very, very strong. I think this is like a strangely good one-cost character, where if you can get a few activations out of him before they take him out, whew, seems good. And then what's the worst-case scenario? They're using their removal on him. Some of the yellow cards seemed a little too combo-y. Like, the Ohm card at least searches the top 5 for Holly to put it into play. But then you have cards like Kotori and Hotori, this card, where it's like, on play, you may play one Kotori from your hand. Well, if you don't have Kotori in hand, then you can't do this effect. And vice versa, if you have the Kotori card and you don't have Hotori in play, then this is just a 3 cost 3K. It's just kind of again, it's just kind of dead in hand. It's just a 1K counter. Some potential here for sure. I thought a lot of these cards had potential. All the events seemed pretty good to me for yellow. The El Thor card, you know, a 1 cost 4K counter is always going to be good. 200 million volt Samaru. This seemed really good as well because you're 2 costs plus 3K to your leader or a character. And then if you have 1 or less life cards, resting a character that costs 4 or less. Because then you're going to be able to, you know, either destroy that character you rested, or, you know, swing past it if it's like a Borsellino where now they don't have that blocker down. And the other one was decent as well. This one was the least impressive to me, but at the same time, it's the most impressive to me early in the game, but the least impressive to me later in the game. I don't know. You know, you have to kind of figure that out for yourself. And as usual, guys, tell me what y'all think in the comment section below if you agree, disagree, or have different thoughts on it. All right, guys, that's about it. Finally done going through all of the different cards for OP-05. Already looking forward to that. And I don't even have OP-04 yet. You know, in the West, we still don't even have OP-04 yet. It's coming out in about a little less than a month. A little less than a month away at the time of recording this. And, man, there's some good stuff coming out for OP-05 I can't wait to get my hands on. But we got to be patient. It's fun to look at these because, you know, having said that and having gone through all the cards now, in the East they already have OP-05 and they're starting to do tournaments, and that's one of the big reasons I wanted to rush through the not necessarily rush through these, but there's a reason I wanted to get through this now, so that way we could look at the OP-05 decks coming out and the tournament lists, the deck lists coming out from OP-05 over in the East, and that way we could critique them and check them out and know what the cards do. So, all right, guys, as usual, hope y'all enjoyed that. Hope y'all liked all these reviews. And if you don't mind, please leave a like and a subscribe, leave a comment, whatever. It all helps me out. And until next time, guys, peace.